Hi, I'm Debbie Harbeck, and I'm a certified life coach working with women in midlife and through the menopause transition. So each week, I'll be sharing the latest information, inspiration, and generate some momentum so you can move forward and feel more in control of your changing midlife body and your life. Let's go. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm glad you're here because we're going to be talking about feeling exhausted. And maybe you can relate to this. So many women I talk to are feeling tired and exhausted and just out of sorts. And I hear them say things like, I just feel burnt out, or I feel stressed and anxious so much of the time, or I don't have the energy to do the things I used to love to do. I don't know if you can relate to any of these things, but I know I have related to these things in the past. And I am super aware now of what I need to do to feel energetic and motivated. But a few years ago, I felt completely depleted. Of course, my job didn't help. It started at 5:30 a.m. and the atmosphere at work wasn't good. So people weren't happy. People were being laid off. It wasn't a great place to come in the morning. But it was more than that. I knew it was more than that. I realized I had changed. I didn't have the same drive and motivation anymore, even in my personal life. And I also felt like I had lost some confidence in myself. And the biggest thing, in fact, for me was that I felt like I was going through the motions. I was really struggling to find the meaning behind everything. And that was really tough because I felt almost like I had a virus that I just couldn't get rid of. But I did. I ended up being able to shake it off. And I did that by putting into practice certain things that I'm going to talk to you about today. If you can relate to any of the things I've said so far, it's likely not in your imagination. It's really not uncommon for women in midlife to feel like I was feeling, to feel tired and exhausted and stressed and anxious. And yes, hormones do play a role. And before I go any further, I just want to let you know that I have created a free guide called Exhausted to Energized, so you don't need to take notes during this podcast episode. And you can just go to the show notes in whatever platform you're listening to, and you can download this free guide. There's a link there. You just go there, you download it, and you'll get a lot more details than what I'm going to go into here today. But I do want to share this information here today because I really think we all need to hear this. So I'm going to start with our hormones because they do play a really significant role right now for you. And I'll just go over them briefly because I go into a lot more detail about hormones in episode 10. So please go back to that episode if you want to hear more about your hormones. But here I just want to talk about how hormones impact your energy. So you're over 45, let's say, and chances are your female hormones aren't being produced as much or as consistently as they once were. So estrogen and progesterone start to drop off. And when they decrease, other hormones in our body are impacted. Hormones never act alone. They always impact each other. So this impact can lead to a lot of fatigue and a lot of the symptoms that you see in menopause. One big hormone that is impacted is called cortisol, and it's a hormone that has generally been kept in check by estrogen and progesterone. It's been kept at bay, but now that we don't have those female hormones acting on us as much, that cortisol tends to affect us a lot more. So even if everything in your life has stayed the same, you have the same job, you're eating the same foods, doing the same exercise, in the same relationships, you may feel more stressed physically and emotionally. You may feel more anxiety, more overwhelm, more fatigue, and therefore you'll probably feel a lot less energetic. And another hormone you need to know about is insulin. It's that energy storing hormone. It's affected by this increase in cortisol and in the decrease of your progesterone and estrogen. And what can happen is that your blood sugar may increase. So your cells may become, as a result, more insulin resistant, and that can cause a decrease in energy because your cells aren't taking in as much nourishment as they were. That's something to be aware of. And finally, another hormone you should know about is thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. Around 25% of women in midlife and beyond experience a drop in TSH, and it can lead to a lot more fatigue, some weight gain, maybe even some depression. I know I've just mentioned a few hormones here, but it's really important that if you are experiencing fatigue or exhaustion or more stress, that you don't just assume that it's perimenopause or menopause, but that you go and get yourself checked out. Get your thyroid hormone checked, and also talk to your doctor about anything else that you may be feeling. Now, just because your hormones are changing, which they are, doesn't mean that you have to wait till that change is done somewhere in postmenopause so that you can feel better again. There are actually things you can do starting today to help you feel better. And in my guide, I talk about 5 strategies. So please go get the guide and you'll be able to look at these 5 strategies and really go through them. Here, I'll talk about them each briefly, but of course, there'll be more resources in the guide for you. The first strategy I talk about is sleep. Now, I know a lot of times when we think we're low on energy, we're thinking, oh, maybe I need to move more, or maybe I need to eat better. And yes, although those things are important, sleep is the most important thing you can do. So if your sleep is not great, if you're not sleeping long enough, meaning you're not getting 7 to 8 hours, or you're not getting good quality sleep, this is the first place you should be looking. Maybe your sleep has gotten more challenging over this time, which happens to a lot of women. And it's a matter of just looking at, first of all, your sleep routine. So in the guide, I have a list of things that you can look at for your sleep routine. There's a few of them that have really impacted me, and I'll just mention them here. The first one is to turn off my screen at least 30 minutes before bed. This can be a real game changer. It's not only the blue light, by the way, that affects us, it's also that constant movement on our screen. So it just stimulates us. It makes us more alert. We want to turn that off if we can before bedtime. Another thing that has really worked for me that's on this list is to limit caffeine before 2 p.m. So, or even before noon if I can. I try to have my last black tea before noon so that I'm not affected by the caffeine. And another thing has been to reduce alcohol. Now, for me, alcohol has produced heart palpitations. If you have never had heart palpitations, you may be alarmed at first. If this happens to you, you may feel like maybe you're having a heart attack or a panic attack. But it is heart palpitations. Generally, they are not dangerous, but they do scare you. And they can wake you up at night and can keep you up at night. So alcohol can perpetuate those, as well as alcohol can cause night sweats and hot flashes. So you just want to be aware of that. It might be a time to really think about letting go of alcohol if that's something you've even been contemplating. And then, of course, I have got a sleep toolbox in there that you can look at, some things you can use if you're having trouble falling asleep or having trouble during the night with waking up and getting back to sleep. I have a few things here, including on my Headspace app, I have these sleep casts, which are amazing. They're like bedtime stories where nothing really happens. They're just very calming stories, and there's no plot or anything. It's just very soothing to listen to, and that usually gets me to sleep within 5 minutes. Try some of these things that I have in the toolbox, which can really help you get back to sleep. And then once your sleep is sort of taken care of, you can start looking at things like food. Food in particular in midlife, you may need to look at things a little bit differently. One of the things you want to really ensure you're getting enough of is fiber. Fiber will keep your gut bacteria happy. It will give you more energy because your gut bacteria is happy. and it will just get things flowing. Your digestive system will work a lot better. When things are moving in your body, you have more energy. So we want to get fiber in the form of veggies and fruit and nuts and seeds and lightly processed grains. And of course, drink more water if you're taking in fiber, because it's with the water that the fiber actually works. You also want to make sure you're getting more protein than maybe you were before. So protein will help build that muscle. It will help keep your stomach satisfied. You will just feel like you've got more energy. You can go for plant sources like tofu and legumes. You can go for animal sources like lean meats and eggs. Dairy, not so much. I would say dairy is not maybe the place you want to go unless you really don't have a problem with dairy. But so many women I know in midlife have an issue with dairy. So I would say limit it in that form. And another thing I really want to tell you is to eat enough. So many of us want to reduce our weight. We want to get into better shape. And one of the ways we tend to do that is to reduce certain foods like carbs. We say, oh, just cut out the carbs. I'll go on a keto diet. Great. Not so great. Not so great in midlife. In midlife, what we want to do is stay energized. We need the energy. We need carbs. Carbs give us energy. It doesn't have to be processed carbs. We want to be eating more whole foods, and whole foods includes fruits and vegetables, and those are carbs. So we want to be eating those, but we don't want to limit anything, because when you start limiting food groups, then you're not getting the energy you need. Then you might actually be losing lean muscle instead of fat, which is something you really don't want to do because it can also affect your bone mass. So be very wary of that. Then the third strategy I talk about is exercise or movement. And I know we all want to jump to, oh, cardio, I'm going to push, but we don't want to be pushing ourselves too much here. What we really want to be thinking about is building muscle. Building muscle. With more muscle, you have more energy. With more muscle, you have more calorie burning and therefore weight losing capability. So muscle is what you want, and muscle also will help you maintain that bone mass, which is so critical at this time of life. Start doing some strength training. I've outlined in the guide a little bit how you could think about that. Getting it done 2 to 3 times a week is ideal. And then also doing exercise for mobility's sake, not pushing yourself to burn calories. It's really not about that. It's about staying mobile so that you can move without pain, because if you start having pain, if your joints start being inflamed, you will move less. That's not good for anyone. So you want to be moving a lot. You want to do exercise that enhances your mobility, meaning it moves your joints in all its directions. So things like yoga are great. Stretching exercises are generally great. Tai Chi, great. Even strength training generally can move your muscles in different ways or move your joints in different ways and challenge you that way. So move through that range of motion that you've got. Then we want to talk about reducing stress. So yes, everything is connected here, right? We don't talk about any of these strategies in isolation. Stress can be impacted by your sleep. It can be impacted by a bad diet. It can be impacted by a lack of exercise. So you really want to think about your stress, not in isolation, but in conjunction with everything. The one thing I do every day for stress, which is like magic, is to get outside and walk. It is truly the easiest, most magical thing you can do, is to get outside and walk. It's important to be outside, because outside, and I am looking out the window as I'm talking to you right now, because it's calming. And the world looks like such a big place compared to your problems. So it just automatically reduces your stress. If you can get out there and breathe and walk and move and just feel good, it is so amazing. And then you can try things like journaling, where you dump anything. If you have a racing mind, if you have stuff going through your head, especially during the night, it happens to me too, have a journal beside your bed where you can just scribble down whatever's going on and let it go. And just cultivating calm, cultivating stillness actually is great. And I know it's something a lot of us think we can't do, but that's why it's even more important to do, is because we feel like we can't because we have such a busy, stressful, full life. We can do this. And it's so important to know that you can. It's like a superpower. When you can get still and breathe, it's like, wow, no matter where you are, you have the capability of reducing your stress and feeling better. And when you know you can do that, it's empowering. And finally, my 5th strategy is to have yourself in your own calendar. None of the things I've talked about here can possibly happen if you do not prioritize them, if you don't put them in your calendar as things that are important for you to do. Just like a meeting, just like a doctor's appointment, you need to have you in your calendar. So if you want to exercise more, put the exercise in your calendar. When is it going to happen? On what days? For how long? Really get clear about it. I know it sounds like work, but it's a lot more work when you don't do it, because then you start getting stressed that it's not going to get done because you haven't done it yet, and then you just don't do it. And that can be on your mind as well. So reduce your stress by actually taking the time to put things in your calendar, even if it's about cooking or going grocery shopping. I know it sounds silly, but when you actually plan and think about these things, they're more likely to get done and you're less likely to be stressed. And we need to rethink, and this is super important, we need to rethink that word selfish. Yes, if spending more time on yourself and thinking about yourself is selfish, then we need to be more selfish. This is the time to do it. This is the time to focus on yourself, to take the time it takes to make sure you're healthy and taken care of, so that yes, then you can go out and take care of everything and everyone else. But you need to be selfish right now. And you have my full support in being selfish. In fact, get support. Get support from other women. Get support from a best friend. Get support from me. I'm a coach and I help you with this because I know this is a stumbling block for so many women. This word selfish, we have to get over it. If you need accountability, if you need to get through it, let's do that. You can always come to me for that. I can help you out. And that's what I've got for you. So these are the things that are in the guide. Of course, these are things that you can control. These are things that you can get done in your life without anybody else helping you necessarily. But if you need more help, if you think you need hormone therapy, or you think you need some alternative therapies, like there are some great ones like acupuncture or reflexology or CBT, there's a lot of things out there that can help you beyond what I've shared here. So I've included some resources in the guide. Please go ahead and look at those things. There's some books, there's some websites, and be open to new ideas, new ways of maybe feeling better. There are so many things out there that can possibly help you. Coaching is one of them. It's what I do. The coaching I do is to teach you how to do all of these things in your life and to be able to do them beyond working with me. I can definitely help you with that, but there's so many things you can do. So I really hope that this episode was helpful for you. I hope that you're taking something away. I hope that you've gone and downloaded the guide that I provided. And please share that guide with others. Send them the link to the free guide and have them download it, or send them to this podcast episode. So I'll be back next week. Thank you again. And I'll have a guest on next week. So please tune in, keep moving forward, and bye for now. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Midlife Momentum Podcast. If you want to learn more about working with me, come visit me at DebbieHarbeckCoaching.com. That's Debbie, I-E, Harbeck with a C, coaching.com. See you next week.